我们来自四面八方，豪气可比消防战士，乘着凤凰展翅飞，官员转变在今朝，不怕烈火和风雨。
Hello and welcome back to Strait Talk with Xiangyu, where we dive deep into the Taiwan Strait, a pivotal front line of the battle between Western dominance and Eastern resistance, and between a dying unipolar world and an emerging multipolar order, bringing you a perspective of Taiwan and beyond not seen in corporate media. Today we're keeping the conversation mostly within Taiwan, and I got with me one of the guys I served with during my substitute service at the National Fire Agency's training center in Zhusan Township, Nantou County. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Leo. I've been a military service guy with Xiangyu for the last 6 months, I believe. And today we'll talk about the experience and events that happened there, and you guys should be entertained.
There was supposed to be another guy, but he's not very reliable. 肖师傅，我在说你。So in case you're wondering what substitute service is, we're going to do a little dive into some of the laws and history of Taiwan. If you're not interested in this history, I'll provide a timestamp for you to skip to the two of us talking about our service. So as you know, in 1949, the KMT lost the civil war with the communists and retreated from the mainland to Taiwan. And the goal of Chiang Kai-shek was never to just accept his losses and build up Taiwan as a new beginning, but to build up his forces on Taiwan so he could launch a counteroffensive against the communists to reclaim the mainland. It was in this context that the universal conscription of all male citizens of the Taiwan area began in 1949. And back then, service lasted for 2 years if you were in the Army and 3 years if you were in the Navy, Air Force, or Marine Corps. Chiang Kai-shek died in 1975, and his son Jiang Jingguo took over leadership. During this time, he knew a counteroffensive against the mainland wouldn't be successful, especially after they had successfully built nukes, and that Chinese reunification under the banner of the blue sky, white sun, and red earth could only happen if the Communist Party collapsed. His priority, therefore, was to stabilize the KMT's rule over Taiwan, and he figured in order to do that, he needed to focus on building up Taiwan's economy, which was quite successful under his leadership, and also shed the KMT of the image of being a bunch of out-of-touch elites from the mainland. So he began promoting local Taiwanese into higher levels of government. This was especially important after the US dropped diplomatic ties with Taipei in favor of Beijing. While all of this was happening, Jiang Jingguo's classmate during his time in the Soviet Union took over leadership on the mainland after a brief power struggle following the death of Mao Zedong. And who was this classmate of his, you might ask? It was none other than Deng Xiaoping. So yes, from 1978 to 1988, the two sides of the Taiwan Strait were led by classmates. Of course, the official policy back then regarding the communists was no contact, no negotiations, and no compromise. But realistically, overseas Chinese who were mutual friends with both Deng Xiaoping and Jiang Jingguo were relaying messages between the two. And this was also during the time the mainland was embarking on their reforms. Another reason why Beijing's attitude towards Taiwan softened around this time was because US troops were withdrawn from Taiwan in 1979. On top of all of this, the liberal opposition movement against the KMT was brewing in the 1980s. And not only this, but a lot of veterans from the mainland were protesting travel restrictions that banned them or any citizen of Taiwan from traveling to mainland China. The final nail in the coffin of the three no's policy of no contact, no negotiation, and no compromise happened on May 3rd, 1986, when a dude named Wang Xijue, a former U-2 pilot of the Black Cat Squadron, subdued his co-pilot and technician on his cargo flight and hijacked his own plane and flew to Guangzhou. Because the cargo, as well as his two crew members, needed to get back to Taiwan, and because the KMT was facing pressure from all sorts of directions, this forced representatives from Taipei and Beijing to meet in Hong Kong and enter negotiations, which catalyzed the thaw in relations between the two sides. A little over a year later, those in Taiwan who had blood relatives within 3 degrees, or relatives through marriage within 3 degrees, or a spouse on the mainland were allowed to travel back there for family visits. And eventually, all Taiwanese could go there, and not just for family visits. In 1990, the Taiwan administration formally allowed Taiwanese investments on the mainland. So needless to say, relations between the two sides thawed greatly. So in 1990, military service was 2 years regardless of whether you were in the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine Corps. In 2000, this was reduced yet again to 1 year and 10 months. And starting in 2003, the length of service was gradually reduced by 2 months per year until it became 1 year in 2008. Then it was decided in 2014 that conscription would end and that Taiwan's military would come from recruitment. This change in policy meant 1-year conscription would apply to people born up to 1993, and for those born in 1994 and after, they would only have to do 4 months of basic military training. That is until last year when they decided that 1-year conscription would come back this year for those born in 2005 and after because they couldn't meet recruitment goals. Now, in 2000, substitute service was launched initially out of consideration for people who had religious objections to serving in the military. So instead of going to jail for draft dodging, they could fulfill their duty by working in government agencies in a civilian capacity. In addition to religious reasons, you can also get into substitute service by entering a lottery, which is how most people, like my friend over here, got into substitute service, or by meeting certain criteria for family factor substitute service, such as having a child or pregnant wife or sickly or elderly parents to care for. The difference with family factor servicemen is they're guaranteed to serve near their household registry address and are allowed to go home every night. As to why, the other guy that was supposed to be here did substitute service, that's because in 2017, it was decided that in 2018 and onwards, all conscription age men born in 1993 and before who hadn't served will automatically be placed in substitute service. There's various types of substitute service, such as fire service, like the two of us did, or social services, which include, care for veterans, the elderly, the disabled, etc. There's also educational, medical, and cultural services, mostly in more remote regions of Taiwan. Then there's also R&D substitute service, which you can apply for if you have a master's or PhD in a relevant field. And you fulfill your service by working for companies like TSMC, but as a contracted worker provided to them by the government. Since the two of us were in substitute service, and specifically fire service at the National Fire Agency's Training Center, we won't speak on military service or other types of substitute service because we haven't and never will go through them. All substitute servicemen begin their service with 16 days of basic training on a military base called Chenggongling. And with the exception of R&D substitute service, it isn't until the end when we know what kind of service we'll be in. You're provided with numbers like how many availabilities there are for each type of service, and you get a feel for what everyone around you wants to do. The thing is, the higher your education, the more priority you get in choosing. So say there's 30 availabilities for social services, and there are 50 people who want to do social services. And let's say 7 of them have PhDs, 20 of them have masters, and 35 of them have bachelor's degrees. And 10 of them have only graduated from high school. In this case, all 7 of the PhDs and all 27 masters will get it, which leaves us with 23 more spots available. So with 35 bachelors, that means 12 will be eliminated by luck of the draw, and the last 10 who only have a high school education won't get in. And the best course of action for them is to go try their luck for another service. This happens on like the 9th or 10th of basic training and determines the type of service you'll do. But it doesn't determine where you serve. That's determined by your total score at Chenggongling, which includes 2 written exams, one for EMT certification and the other for familiarity with laws regarding substitute service. And then there's a physical score, which in our case was push-ups, with 45 push-ups being 100% and like 10 or something like that being minimum passing. What's 35 is like 80%, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Then on top of that, there's a score for conduct, which there isn't much you can do other than to follow the rules, do your best to meet the requirements for bunk and locker inspections, and not get caught doing stupid things like start food fights, which did happen. And the higher your score is, the more priority you get in choosing from the available spots to serve in the specific service you're in. And this happens on the very last day of basic training, and afterwards, you're taken to wherever you're supposed to serve the remainder of your conscription. So in our case, we were bused to Zushan Township in Nantou County, where the National Fire Agency's Training Center is. And for those who don't know, the training center is where all prospective firefighters in Taiwan must undergo 1 year of very vigorous military-style training. And they can only graduate to become firefighters if they pass their physical and written tests. A lot of people don't understand this, and they think that I spent my year doing that sort of training. But substitute servicemen there work in various capacities to help keep the place running smoothly. However, I will say, if you're in fire service and you're serving at a local fire department, which is the majority of them, depending on the county or city you're in, you may or may not be required to go out on rescue missions to help with everything but go into burning buildings. However, this requirement recently changed, and we'll get into that a little bit. So now that I've provided all the relevant information, let's start with the chat. So, how was your experience at basic training on the military base, and did anything interesting or funny happen?
So the overall experience actually, if it's basically the same as if you just undergo like normal military service instead of the substitute ones. But the difference, I mean, there's still difference. For example, like the food we had. So if
This brings back painful memories.
yeah, so like if you're undergoing like normal services, you'll have people who are assigned like that. You know, their main purpose is to bring food to the table, even like
Cook and everything,
yeah.
right?
But since we're just there for like 2 weeks or so, they had a outside company to bring food to us, and damn.
The budget for every meal is
Like-
about $1 per meal. So think about how good the food could be.
Yeah.
It's enough to get you full, but you only eat it because you're hungry.
Yeah. Actually, in our case, like, I think it kind of depends, but a lot of my colleagues there, we ate a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're hungry after all day.
Yeah. So like the food they brought, it's always the same, and like like the proteins are really in really small portions. And since the budget is really low, they often give what's like the cheapest at the season.
I feel like if you did if you took the food, the proteins to a lab to get chemically tested, it might be vegan. I don't think it was real meat. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? You talked about the company that was contracted for the food. In one of the other squadrons when I was there. So what happens is every month there is one 梯次 or echelon. So like every month there's a few hundred that go through this military training, like basic training before they get sent to wherever they're supposed to serve. One of the other squadrons, I was in the 7th squadron. In the 5th squadron, there were these guys, because you're not allowed to smoke on the military base as a substitute trainee. I think regular soldiers are allowed to smoke. So, and your cigarettes get confiscated on the first day. So what some people decided was they talked to some of the truck drivers who were delivering food and said, if you bring us cigarettes, we'll pay double. So that went on for a while, but then they got a little bit too comfortable with their shady dealings. And eventually they told the drivers, hey, after you're done delivering food, drive to our barracks and we'll do the transaction there. And then they got caught. And the higher ups scared them into saying they will have to go through basic training again. But then on the second to last day, he just made them write letters, like write little reports, like 悔过书, saying, hey, what I did was wrong, blah, 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 blah. And just told them, hey, I hope wherever you guys are headed, you guys follow the rules and don't do stupid things like that. So yeah, I mean, I was going to ask the other guy who grew up in the US and came back, that since he never went to school here in Taiwan, this would have been the first time he got thrown into group life with locals, and whether it was difficult to adapt at Chenggongling. But he's not here, so I guess we'll never know. But I guess in my case, I feel like if you go in with the correct attitude, the time passes by pretty quickly, and it's only temporary, so you just kind of take it. To me, it felt like it was a hybrid between prison and high school. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Our substitute service is kind of like if you're on parole, because they dangle you with the threat. So it's like you go out, but if you break the rules and you violate enough regulations, they have the right to send you back to the military base where you'll be under 24-hour surveillance by the actual military for 8 to 16 weeks. So that's not fun. But I never saw that happen to anyone where I was serving, though I did hear about it happening in other places. Now, my question for you is, why did you choose 6 months of substitute service instead of just going through 4 months of military service?
Actually, it's kind of a sad story, Because initially I applied for a international project, so I will still serve as a substitute service guy, but I'll serve abroad to our alliance countries. So I was supposed to be in Switzerland, not Switzerland, but the country that's nearby South Africa. But so I applied for it, and they had like 2 people that's be able to get in. So there's 2 people there were 2 people that had higher priority than me. So I was the 3rd guy, but they told me like, okay, you just join the basic training first, and we'll definitely get you like an extra place for you so you can go to the country as well. So I got in. Then like it's like 12 days after they finally showed up, but they just brought the passport and all the IDs back to me. And then I was like, wait, what? And then I asked them like, I thought you guys said that I'm still able to go as well. And then they're like, no, there's not such a thing. Like, we weren't planning to let you go anyway. So yeah, I kind of got fooled into the normal substitute military service.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing you gotta know when dealing with this sort of bureaucracy is you take everything they say with a grain of salt, because they're just trying to process everyone and make them do their service. So they'll say whatever sounds good, but it may not be the case. And they're all really lazy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still alright, because like I already planned to finish my service like last year. Start my service last year, so it's still fine. But I just didn't get to travel abroad.
If you do diplomatic service, it's the term's longer, right? It wouldn't just be 6 months.
It'll be like a year.
And I think for us who do 1 year, it would have been like 2 or 3 years, something like that. Yeah. I don't remember anymore because I never really considered it. So, yeah. But when you were there at basic training on the military base, how did you choose fire service and not say social services or education service or?
So like a lot of services, they require like they had some requirement. For example, if you want to participate in a educational service, you have to be a teacher, or you have to have the teaching certification. Or for like medical service, you have to be like a math student. So when I knew that I wouldn't be able to go abroad, then it's time for me to choose between the options I had, which was staying in Chengongling, doing the social service, so like caring the elders, or the firefighting service. So what went through my mind was, so first of all, Chengongling is a big no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
so for those who don't know, what they do is they'll keep a few people to stay at the military base, and those people would be in charge of the basic training of the next echelons for the remainder of their terms. So like every month you have to go through 16 days of just being responsible for, I guess in every squadron it's like 100, 200 people. Yeah, and it's quite grueling. So and since you're technically on a military base, they'll install stuff on your phone to disable functions like GPS and
cameras.
And the cameras, and you're not allowed to bring your computer. So it's like the reason you're doing substitute service is because you're not trying to be in the military. But then if you're staying at Chengongling, you might as well just be in the military.
Yeah,
right?
and it's even shorter.
Yeah. So the way I chose was everyone with a PhD wanted to do social services, and my options are basically social services, fire, or staying at the military base. I wasn't trying to stay on the military base. My top choice was to stay near Taipei. And I figured if I did fire services and my test score was high enough, I had a chance to pick a fire department either in New Taipei or Taipei City. And yeah, there were fire services are in a little bit less demand than social services, so there was a chance since I only have a bachelor's degree. So I tried my luck there. But then when I was there, I also signed this little agreement saying if my name gets picked, I will, instead of going directly to wherever I choose, I will first go to the training center, which is in Nantou, for 2 months of training, and then I'll get sent to HQ. The HQ of the National Fire Agency is in New Taipei. And I figured, well, I can go through those 2 months and then serve the remainder of my, I guess my last, like 9.5 months near home. But then, when I went to the training center, I heard all sorts of horror stories about HQ. And it so happened that the reason why they sent me to the training center was because I'm bilingual and there's a lot of foreign guests, and substitute servicemen are basically free labor for them. So so they don't have to hire translators and stuff, and they could just use me. So one of the section chiefs asked if I wanted to stay there, and after some consideration, I decided, yeah, I think staying at the training center in Central Taiwan would be a better option. The dorm's better, the everything about it's better except for being close to home. Yeah. And how did you feel the day you left Chengongling and headed to the training center?
I feel so relieved actually, because like when you get to leave the military base, like you get all your stuff back, including like your phones, your wallets. You feel like just great God. I actually finished, like I was able to went through all that military training and being treated like a dog. I mean, actually worse like a dog, because like when you're in the military base, you have the dogs there are your seniors.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of stray dogs that live on the military base, and they're treated quite well. They get like a bunch of like, the leftover food that doesn't get eaten, and everyone's all friendly towards them. But with us, we just get yelled at, and I got yelled at every day by this. Well, not me as an individual, but like my whole squadron got yelled at every day by this like 19-year-old kid. Well, it's kind of funny. Yeah, no, especially the first meal after you left Chengongling.
It was so good. I mean, looking back now, like that meal was just mediocre. Mm-hmm. But the moment you had like actual food, not like the dog food we had in the military base, it felt like a delicacy.
It really did. And just the way that people treated you once you left the military base, like you got to the training center and people talked to you like a person for once. It's like when we were at military base, we didn't really have names. Like it was kind of like prison where they just referred to us by our numbers. So I was 116. What were you?
I was 73, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's can't believe it's been a year. Do you want to explain what we did at the training center for our jobs?
Sure.
Or we'll talk about in general, what did the substitute servicemen do at the training center? Mm-hmm.
So like in general, like we help out like the paperworks, and so since it's a training center, we also help with the training courses that the firefighters or the instructors are going to do. Mm-hmm.
Some of us, not me or him, but if they were in the right sections, they would help grade papers, grade tests.
And like the returning or the borrowing of the equipment.
Yeah. So the returning and borrowing equipment, we called it 外场, which is like there were two main regions on the campus, the training area and the administrative area. We were in the administrative area, but I guess half of the conscripts are in the training area, and they would actually be handling fire equipment every day. They would be responsible for helping the trainees or visitors borrow and return equipment like the fire suits and the oxygen tanks, and they had to inspect them and make sure they're in good working order. We actually went through that once because there's some fire training. One of them is you go sit inside a fire container for to understand the physics of fire and flashovers and to recognize the signs. It's in a very controlled environment, but you have to wear your fire suit and the oxygen tank and everything. And if the oxygen tank malfunctions in there, you're pretty screwed because the temperature goes
It'll be
750 Celsius.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sit there and then they basically there's two chambers. The combustion chamber has like fuel and all of that stuff, and then there's a little door inside, and the purpose of that training is
for knowing that you could, so like when the firefighters are going into a building for the rescue, often that there might be a room where there's fire inside. Mm-hmm. So as a firefighter, if you just open the room without knowing exactly or how to know what's going on inside the room, it might occur a flashover.
Yeah, you introduce too much new oxygen into a fire.
Then the fire will just blow out.
Yeah, so we did that training, and basically it was other substitute servicemen who made sure our equipment was in good working order, and luckily it was. Otherwise, we would have been
Wouldn't
burned.
be here.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here. Do you think the people in charge of the training center were strict with conscripts, and how were they? I guess this is a two-part question because there's like the actual administrators of the training center, and then there's the administrative cadre who are conscripts like us, but they get promoted to administrative cadre, and they're kind of like the RA and college dorms in America. We're like, basically we're in between the other conscripts and the higher ups, and we're kind of responsible for making sure that everything among conscripts are in order, nobody's going AWOL, and people are more or less following the rules. I became administrative cadre in September of last year. And the other guy who was supposed to be here was one of the guys I was responsible for, and I did his orientation. So I was going to ask him how I was as a leader, but he's not here.
He
Were
bailed
the people
out.
there strict in your experience?
I think for the administrative personnel, so not the conscripts, they were pretty okay in general. At least since I'm not a cadre, I don't actually interact with them as directly as you guys. But at least from what I felt, they were pretty okay. Like as long as you don't break any regulations, or at least you don't get,
They don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
It's like if you break a rule and somebody from the outside reports you, or they take a video of it and it spreads on the internet, and then word gets back to say the conscription agency, and then they call the training center to ask what's going on, then they get mad. Then sometimes the conscripts are collectively punished. It's we've gotten a few close calls before because for various reasons. Other than that, not really. Just don't cause trouble. They don't want to. They just want you to get in, finish your service, and leave.
yeah, without causing any hazard or troubles.
Yeah. So, did you cause any trouble?
Personally, I don't think so.
But
I
you
mean-
got in trouble and you almost got
Yeah.
sent away.
Yeah.
Want to talk about that story?
Yeah, sure. So like, all right. So one of the person who came with us, who came with me to the training center. So we were in the same quadrant actually. He actually was my kindergarten classmate. So like when we were on the bus, we were like getting to know each other a bit more since we were going to serve in the training center for like the rest 5 months. Then I was like exchanging social medias with him, and I saw that we actually went to the same kindergarten.
Because you had a mutual friend and you
Yeah.
asked, hey, who is this person? And he was like, oh yeah, that's my preschool classmate.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that means we went to the same preschool.
It's actually really funny.
So they thought they were good friends. He thought they
Yeah,
were good friends,
I
and they were
thought-
roommates for a little bit.
But then like this guy said he had different version of the story, but the version I got told was like he was born in Taiwan. He grew up in Taiwan until like elementary school or something.
Until he finished preschool, and then he
Yeah.
moved to America.
Yeah. Then like he went to law school and finished the bar exam, became like a New York lawyer, something like that.
At age 23, which if you do the math, it's well, I guess you could be an entry level lawyer, but you wouldn't be a lawyer making $6 million US a year, which was his story.
Yeah.
Hence, he never studied abroad. He made up a new persona, and which is fine, whatever, you know. But he started suspecting that something was off.
Actually, it wasn't me. It was another guy
Sitting
at the
right
same time, sitting right there. But like he was like, "Hey Leo, I don't think that guy's legit." I was like, "Why? Like, what made you like suspicious? Like, you remember he told us that he made $6 million US?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty insane." Then he started to Google him. Then like we saw everything on the internet about him. So to be short, he never went abroad to study, at least not in the US. He's not even like a lawyer in Taiwan.
Nope.
But he did went to law school in Taiwan, but not a lawyer.
Yeah. So then what happened was he was just like, hey, why don't we just ask some questions about America and see how he'd react, just to kind of confirm our suspicions.
Yeah.
So one day we were just hanging out at work, And then he comes in. So then he comes up to me when the other guy was next to me, and he was like, "Hey, Xiangyu, if you're an American citizen, that means you have a green card, right?" Which is obviously not true, but it's a common misconception in Taiwan. A lot of people in Taiwan think green card means citizenship. So he was like, "Hey, can I see your green card?" So I was like, "Why would I have it with me? It's in America, because it's useless over here." Because no, the thing is, I mean, obviously, if you are a green card holder and you travel abroad, you need to bring your green card with you so you could get past customs when you go back to the U.S. So then he asked the other guy, he's like, "What about you? Can I see your green card?" And what did he say?
He said, "No, it's useless here. I locked it back in the safe in my New York home."
Yeah, so then that's when we kind of figured out he was full of shit.
Yeah.
And his English is also really bad. And there's no shame in being bad at English, but then if you're going to say that you're a lawyer in New York, your English should be, somewhat proficient. Like one day someone asked him a question. It was like a "do you something something something" question, and his response was, what was his response?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. It's like "Do you like eating pizza?" "Yes, I am." Yeah. That sort of thing. So then he got upset at him for just fishing for answers.
I mean, for just knowing him's like lying.
Yeah.
Like our suspicion was like
reasonable.
Yeah, but what we thought was he knew that I knew that he was bullshitting. So what he did was like he tried to make people think that I'm a troublemaking person. So so he made me he got me into a lot of troubles.
Yeah, because a new echelon came in like a month after they came in, and there was this little thing that we had. It was like takeout ordering. So because there's a lot of instructors and administrators there, we have a little system where every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner they can order food from outside. So what we do is we pick a restaurant, and then we announce it in a little chat group. They place their orders, and then we take care of everything else, and we also handle their accounts. We have a little system where you can put money into and whatever, and then you're responsible for that with the rest of your echelon. For the first month you're at the training center. So then the new echelon came, and his echelon was responsible for passing on the responsibilities and teaching them how it works. And then as a word of advice, he told them, you might hear rumors about some sort of decision being made, but don't take it too seriously, because a lot of these things that you hear are just rumors, and it takes many layers of bureaucracy for these decisions to be approved. So then his former classmate and former roommate went and basically told one of the administrators, "Hey, Leo went and told the new people that you don't have to listen to the officers here."
Yeah. Then I got into trouble because the caterer who was responsible for the case, he did such an awful job. Actually,
He just believed him and didn't even investigate.
Well, actually, he did. He went to the the newest quadrant, because when you first got to the training center, you have to undergo some classes.
Orientation, you had to take some classes. Yeah.
So like they went to a classroom. They asked, "Okay, so did Leo or like this guy told you guys last night that you don't have to listen to the officers here because they're all bullshitting?" Like none of them said yes, because I didn't say anything like that. But even after that, the cager was like, "Okay, I'm going to have to report this upward," and like not as like, "Okay, we have this rumor going on." Like, he just straight up went there and was like, "Okay, so this guy said this. We have to punish him as hard as possible, even without any evidence."
I was not a huge fan of that particular cadre. His service ended in, I think, October or early November. So I took over a lot of his roles when he was gone. But basically, he's kind of like a teacher's pet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good guy once you get to know him and you're on his good side. But if you're on his bad side, he won't bother finding out the truth, and he'll just target you. And yeah,
I got targeted.
I mean, other than that, I mean, you also got targeted later on by the newer cadre, like other cadres that became cadres with me. I mean, I was pretty hands off. My main responsibilities as cadre was taking newer conscripts through orientation and introducing the rules to them. And yeah, but what about the other cadres?
I mean, the other cadres, they're responsible for like the managing of all the conscripts after they're in the training center. But the reason I got targeted was like I was at fault for like some part of it, but for the most part, I think it's that because the last cadre that left, the one who got me into really really big trouble,
The Macau guy.
yeah, the Macau guy, he's just really upset with me and the guy who found out that the lawyer was bullshitting for no reason particularly. He just think that the two of us are like troublemaker, even though we're not. So before he left, he told the newer cadre that, okay, you have to really focus on this two guy. Just make sure they are not like 翔宇2.0.
No, not Xiang Yu.
yeah.
There was this other guy named Wen Ting.
Oh, 文婷2.0.
He had his way of getting out of trouble because he's like a young kid who just got out of college, and he's very good at playing naive. So he'll break the rules, or like he'll just be lazy and not do his job. And then when he's confronted about it, he'll just like use his eyes and be like, "No, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I did what I was supposed to. I don't know." So then that cadre told me to make sure that this guy doesn't become that guy 2.0. I mean, okay, that guy was also doing things like making fake passes to leave campus, which I mean, I kind of did that as well. I can say that now that I'm not a serviceman anymore. But that is not a reflection of the training center. That's just my personal irresponsibility.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that because recently the training center got on the news for... So basically the system got changed because the Director General of the National Fire Agency decided he wants conscripts to undergo 1 month of training after basic training at the military base. So no matter where you're supposed to be, he wants them all to come to the training center, undergo 1 month of actual fire training before going to local fire departments to serve. And because of this, fire service is now in very low demand because people are like, wait, if I have to go through another month of military style training, I might as well just stay on the military base. I don't want to do fire service. So the people who end up in fire service now, this was shortly after I left, starting on March 19th, I think. Something like that. They, like every month, about like 200 to 300 fire conscripts will come to the training center. And a lot of these people are, because these are people born in 2005 and after now, because the better substitute conscripts are all trying to get into other types of service, not come here. So like by process of elimination, it's the kids who don't have college degrees, who have only finished high school or high school dropouts.
Yeah.
Come here. So they're kind of hooligans, a lot of them.
A lot of them.
Yeah. So that happened, and they've been on the news recently because they're doing all sorts of crazy things like smoking in the dorms, like starting fights. Like one of them went to the hospital because he
Two of them actually.
got injured or got sick or whatever. And then when he went to the hospital, he snuck out and bought a knife and brought it back to the training center because he wanted to stab somebody. And wasn't there somebody who was who snuck ketamine on the campus and started smoking it there?
Yeah. I mean, we're not so sure about that. That's just our suspicion. So
don't quote us.
Yeah.
Because we're still in contact with some of the people who are still on campus, and their responsibility now is to make sure these kids are following the rules and doing what they're supposed to. And it's been very chaotic there. And they were recording a bunch of videos and uploading them online, which is how it ended up in the media. So just last night, actually, on the news, we saw footage of a fight breaking out on the training center, which makes... Yeah, it's a pretty bad look for the National Fire Agency, but it's not
it's not the actual firefighters.
Yeah, no, it's the Director General is just too out of touch because he has in mind, if I do this, then fire servicemen are going to be like top grade or whatever. He didn't realize the realities on the ground, like what this would cause. Like, okay, substitute servicemen don't want to do fire service anymore, so it's going to be the worst of the worst who are coming, and then they're going to cause trouble, and then it's going to go on the media. So Do you feel there was a very serious seniority system over there, like 学长学弟制?
Actually, okay, so regarding the conscripts, actually not much, but there were definitely a few cager who's like all about it. Not Xiangyu, of course, but some other cager who are like, so like I'm your senior, so you should listen to me, whether or not the order is like reasonable or
Yeah.
not.
See, the way I did it was, okay, there are rules. Some of them are quite stupid, but we still need to follow them because if we don't and word gets out, then all of us are screwed. I don't care about what you guys do. Just don't cause trouble for anyone because just think before you act, not for yourself, but for the other people. Because if you do something stupid like smoke in the dorms and record a video and then upload it online and people see it, someone's going to report you because there's a lot of snitches like that. And once that happens, all of the privileges that we have as conscripts will get canceled by the officers above us, and they don't want to do that, and we don't want to deal with it. And I would subtly hint things like, hey, we're not allowed to drink on campus, so I don't want to see evidence. And the cameras are there, and then the trash cans are over there. And we don't go through the trash, but if we open the lids and see that there's empty cans of beer or alcohol, or if you do something stupid like leave empty bottles out in your room during dorm inspections, then for the sake of maintaining order, we have to, well, not me, but the other cadres will have to write you up. And they kind of understand what I'm getting at. Except for one of the newer people that came in right before I left. He's kind of a dumbass. Like I hope he gets sent back to Sunggung because he causes a lot of trouble for other conscripts, and he's just not very cooperative. Most of the people we work with are civil servants. There's like instructors who are firefighters who are brought in from local fire departments to come assist the fire trainees with their training. And there's different things like water rescue or like climbing buildings and all that stuff. It's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, our job is to just make sure that their time is as easy as possible, that all of their needs are met. Conscripts can do their jobs and aren't being asked to do unreasonable things. Yeah, there's not much room to start too much trouble. You have to go out of your way to get in trouble, really. I mean, I did get in trouble once.
Why?
What is it? The interior minister came. Mm-hmm. And right before he came, he made a visit to America. It was just such a bad look, in my opinion. He was like so subservient to the American officials. It just seemed like a dog. But then he comes to our fire training, our fire training center, and he's acting like the top dog and everything. And I'm just like, this fucking guy. I posted a picture of him online, saying like, acts like a dog outside, but over here he acts like he's the boss. And I didn't really think much of it. I was still new. It was really dumb of me. But somebody online saw it and reported that post. Yeah, so I had to write a little report and tell them that I wouldn't do it again. I mean, I did feel bad about it, not for what I said, but for just giving my supervisors trouble because they had to deal with the conscription agency, which was I mean, they ended up laughing about it, so it was all good, and I was still promoted to administrative cadre, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But little things like that. What about that other guy who kept on being all on your case for being like 2 minutes late every day?
Who?
P哥.
I mean, overall, like, he's a nice person. I mean, I get that he's just doing his job.
He's being the bad cop.
Yeah. He was the one acting the bad cop. It's like really weird because like every time when we have like a night meeting, like every day,
Every Monday.
and Thursday,
Yeah.
So like every like night meeting, he'll be like announcing like new rules or like new foundings, and like
Announcements.
he'll just roast me on the meetings. He'll roast me like indirectly, like so for like a few weeks or so, I was like always late to work for like 1 minute or 2 minutes. It's not like I'm late for work for like an hour. It's like 1 or 2 minutes.
That did happen once when you overslept.
That was an accident though.
We kind of covered up for you though.
Yeah. Thank you guys. So like in the meeting, he was like, I will just say this the one last time. You're not allowed to be late even for 1 or 2 minutes, though we have a 10-minute buffer, but it'll be the cager deciding if you get to use the buffer or not. So you guys better be on time.
Yeah, because you use it every day.
I mean, the reason is because like for the other office, like they get to leave for lunch break very, very soon. But for my office, my manager, he often comes to work like I'm not so sure about the working hours for him. I think as long as he gets like 8 hours per day, then that's fine. So he often gets the office like later, or like he's just not in the office because he's out there doing stuff. And he was a really, really chill guy, so he doesn't care that much, if I'm late for like a minute or two.
Yeah. As long as you get your job done by the end of the day, he's pretty hands off.
Yeah. And like also I don't get to leave lunch break earlier like the caterer did. They always left like 30 minutes before the lunch break. I always stick at the office until like 12. So I was like, okay, come on, it's just 1 or 2 minutes. What's the why do we have to be so strict?
The reason is because in our the card in card out system, if HQ wanted to look at it, they can. So our whole thing is if we have any trouble on the TC at the training center, as long as word doesn't get up to the fire HQ, we can handle it internally. But if the woman in charge of our attendance sees that you're consistently late every day, she might ask us questions, and we don't want to deal with that. That's probably why. She doesn't want to deal with these little things, so she gets very upset very easily.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason.
Yeah. So what I did after is like I just get to work in time, but I left for lunch break earlier.
Now, so what did we do as conscripts for fun when we were in Nantou?
We go to the gym every day.
Yeah. And during and when the swimming pool was available, we would go swimming too.
Yeah. When like during a training session, because like the swimming pool will only be open and usable when the firefighters are undergoing like water training.
So it starts in late March and it ends
On like October.
something like that.
Yeah.
Because you came in and not too long after the pool wasn't available anymore. Yeah, we can talk about our lawyer friend again. He says what he does triathlons.
Yeah.
But he's not very fit.
Yeah.
And he would we invited him to come swimming with us a few times. This was when we were all still on good terms. And yeah, I'm not a good swimmer, but he swam slower than me. And he didn't have good form or anything, but somehow he's yeah.
And it's actually really funny because there was another guy.
A runner.
Yeah, was a runner, and he also do like water activities like diving and stuff like that, snorkeling. And the lawyer was teaching him how to dive into a water.
There was that guy, the snorkeling guy, but then there was a runner who did a half marathon.
Oh yeah. Also,
It was a marathon organized by Standard Chartered.
Yeah.
And that runner went and did a half marathon. So then our lawyer friend was like, oh yeah, well I did the full marathon. I placed in the top 20. The rankings of everyone's all publicized on their website. So then that runner guy was naturally curious, so he went and searched, and he said, yeah, I couldn't find your name. I mean, the top 20, they're all like Olympics
runner.
Or like national team like level. He was like, oh, I'm top 20 once you discount them all. But then it's he's a compulsive liar. Yeah. I think what we also did for fun was, there's a lot of restaurants nearby. I don't know why, but over there's a lot of restaurants that sell earned roasted chicken. So we would go out and eat every now and then. We'd also, if a conscript was about to finish his service, or if there was a birthday or whatever, or if we were bored, we would go to KTV. So it's like karaoke, but instead of like a karaoke bar like in the West where it's like open and everyone at the bar listens. It's like little private rooms for your group of friends to do karaoke on a big projector screen.
We've also went to the nearby cities a couple of times. Went there for movies and even like clubs.
Yeah, we went clubbing once, and we also did paragliding.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that was a hell of fun.
Yeah, there's also some moon lakes nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Sun Moon Lake once during my service. That was pretty cool.
I went there like 3 or 4 times. It's a really beautiful lake.
Oh yeah, you didn't go home too often when you were serving, right?
Yeah, like on the weekends, I just stayed there because it's actually kind of it's a hassle to go home. Actually, the traffics there were really awful unless you have a car. I only had my bike there, a motorcycle. So on the weekends, I just ride around the Nantou County to see different areas of the county because it's a pretty remote area. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you also took on a tutoring job, didn't you?
I did. I get to say that now, though.
Yeah. No, because when we're conscripts, we're not allowed to have any other occupations. But if it's like tutoring on weekends and it's all cash, then
I mean that's fine.
Yeah, you
because
can't
it's
really
like
control
weekend. It's not like I'm tutoring during work.
yeah. No, there was this one guy in HQ. He was, I don't know what he was doing, but he had another job, and he was doing that job, like on his service job, and it got to the point where it was impacting his job, and everyone around him was getting upset because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. So he got sent back to a military,
Yeah.
a military base. There was this other guy who got sent back to the military base. This guy, I think he was serviced in Jinmen, so one of the offshore areas, one of the offshore islands off of Fujian. It's like on the other side of the Taiwan Strait. He got caught watching porn, and when he got caught and got called out, he got upset and he beat up the administrator who caught him. Yeah. So then he got sent back to Chenggongling. And now I'm wondering, because like Jinmen, it was either Jinmen or Matsu. It's on the other side of the strait. Like he either has to take a boat or a plane back to Taiwan. So do you think he paid for his own ticket, or did the state like cover that for him?
I think the state covered it.
Oh, free plane ticket.
Yeah.
It's quite nice. And although we weren't in actual fire training, we had a pretty close-up look at what training for prospective firefighters was like. Has this changed your opinion and views of rescue workers here in Taiwan? And would you want to become a firefighter?
Yeah, so like it changed a lot. And so like when we're doing our basic training on military base, it also consists of the EMT training. So when I was doing my EMT training, so like I was learning how to rescue people, like emergency rescuing. I had this idea of like, rescuing people and helping people seems like a pretty great job. Like it might be a pretty cool career to pursue. But then I got into the training center. I witnessed how immensely difficult the training that the firefighters are undergoing. How like you have to wear like 23 kilograms of equipment and go into a fire, and you have to be able to like walk, run, jump, and like even grab the patients out.
Let's put it this way. The soldiers we saw on the military base, some of them were out of shape, some of them were fat. None of the trainees at our training center were out of shape. And like by the time they finish the 1 year training, they all have 6-packs.
Yeah.
And they're not even trying to get 6-packs. It's just a byproduct of their rigorous training.
Which is really insane. So like after seeing that, I was like, okay, I'm definitely
You're not cut for it?
Yeah.
I figured that out pretty soon too, especially when we were doing the flashover training, like just sitting there. I mean, it was only 10 minutes, but it felt like 40. It was like super hot.
Yeah. And like we were sitting at the very back end of the container.
Yeah.
So, but like normally if you're like doing a firefighting rescuing session, you'll be like very, very upfront to the fire, which will be like 10 times hotter, I believe.
Yeah. No, it was it's quite intense. I mean, It makes sense because there's a lot of natural disasters in Taiwan, especially earthquakes and typhoons. So you want the rescue workers here to be in like the best of the best, cream of the crop, which is why I understand, why the training is that intense. Whereas in America, like to become a firefighter, the training is only half the time. And it's not done like centrally. It's like done locally at the different departments. It's not like over here they all go through the same program. I think when I was serving, my perception of not just firefighters but also the police here changed a bit, because there's two fast track ways to become police in Taiwan. One of them is to go to police university, and police university doesn't mean you go there and you become a cop. It's a fast track way to become a civil servant of any kind. And there's also what's 警专? It's like a police academy. It's not as prestigious as police university, but it's still one of those fast track programs. And those people nowadays are exempt from military service or service of any kind if they become a civil servant within a certain amount of time after they graduate from their programs. But if they either don't take the test to become a civil servant or they fail enough times, they end up doing substitute service. So some of our colleagues, some of the other conscripts we served with came from police university. And unlike policemen in America, like cops here have to learn like everything. Like they're some of the smartest people I've met. Like they're just regular, went to police university, but they have to understand the law very thoroughly. It's book smarts and also like immense physical training. Yeah, like that guy Bing Chen, he does like boxing, and he's also very I don't know how, but he's like very knowledgeable with like traditional medicine.
He even did martial art.
Yeah. He knows how to subdue people and all that stuff. I mean, he's got that serious look.
Yeah. It's like a image that you will have for like a Taiwanese cop.
Yeah, no, that was one of my biggest changes of perspective over there. Just having the respect for these people and civil servants in general. But you know how intense the training is. Did you notice in January when the new class of fire trainees came in? Like for the first week, they smelled incredibly bad. Like you could smell them from like 5 meters away.
It's disgusting.
And you know why?
The reason is because like they have to train for the entire day, even like until the last moment where like they were able to go back to rest. But then like they have to wake up really, really early, like even before the sunrise the next day. So they just gave up like showering because it takes too much time.
It wasn't that. It's part of their training program. The first week they undergo 震撼教育, which is like shock training, and it's like extreme hazing. Like we would see from a distance, and it was pretty bad. It's like what you see in those like movies on like those Vietnam War movies where like like the private joins the U.S. military and goes through that level of hazing. It's that, but maybe even worse. And for the first week, they're not allowed to shower. It's not like they don't have time to shower. They don't bother showering. It's not built into their schedule.
They're just not allowed.
Yeah, and then like, do you remember like during that week? I mean, they were living like in the 3 stories below us, and the women were living in the building across from us. Like even the building across from us, like at midnight, we would hear their, I guess the leaders involved in training them just like wake them up and just like start yelling, like, get the fuck out of bed. Like, yeah.
I
Quite
remember
intense.
that. Yeah.
I think the dropout rate's like kind of high for the first week, right? And then it stabilizes.
Yeah, because it's like the worst week.
Yeah.
For the entire training.
And then if you go through the entire year of training, but you don't pass the exams, like the physical and written tests, you'll have to go through the program again next year. And towards the end of last year, there was this incident where a few people were caught, how do I say it, inaccurately reporting their running times. That was the official answer that we gave. One of them figured, I got caught cheating, I'm just gonna drop out and try again next year. But then because it was election season, right? In case you don't know, election season is like around the time when corruption is a little bit high, because you don't want to piss off the administration when it's seeking re-election. And if these sorts of scandals are made public during this time, it's a bad look for the entire government. So then they tried to keep things under wrap, and then I guess 8 of them got caught. It was like 8 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So one of them figured, oh, I'm not gonna make it, so I'm just gonna drop out. But then he found out the other 7 somehow like stayed in the program and weren't kicked out.
So he snitched on them.
I'm guessing that's
Yeah.
how else would he get caught?
That's what I heard. That's actually what I heard.
Really? Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense to
Yeah.
me. So, yeah, we saw a little bit of government corruption up close, and I also came to the conclusion the government here isn't short on money. It's just bad at spending it. Because you have these government agencies, and then like a lot of things, you find contractors to complete them, and then you're gonna find like, okay, let's say I'm an official and I got a friend who's a carpenter, and I need some of his services. Instead of finding maybe a cheaper carpenter, I'll find him, and then I'll be like, hey, since you're my friend, just raise your price. It's okay. It's not my money. It's the government's money.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff going on, a lot of inefficiencies, but it is what it is. But what was your biggest takeaway from conscription?
I'll never be working in any like official institutions like ever. At least not in Taiwan, no.
Yeah, I kind of wouldn't want that for myself either. It's a good job if you want a stable income, and it's a good job, but you just have to deal with so much nonsense.
I mean,
just the bureaucracy.
If you have like a stiff mind, so like you don't really care that everything have to undergo like a procedure, and like anything, even though it's like way more reasonable or like more efficient, as long as it's like not inside within the procedure, we're not going to do that. If you're okay with that, then I think like you're actually pretty suitable for the job.
If you're not okay with that, you better be good with people, because if you bend the rules for convenience and you upset somebody, they're gonna report you.
Yeah, a lot of people actually.
A lot of that going on. That's when I realized, wow, like snitch culture in Taiwan, it's quite bad. Well, I guess within certain sectors, I think most people here still don't like snitches.
Yeah.
But there is a segment of society that I guess really gets off from snitching. I got a ticket the other day, 600 Taiwan dollars, which is around $20 US, for merging on a solid line. Like I began my merge on the dotted line, but then by the time I finished the merge, it was on the solid line, and someone took the dash cam footage, took it to the police department, and reported me. I think it's because he felt like I cut him off and he was upset at me. But it's like, if you get cut off, whatever. Like I've been cut off before. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to cover? Because I think that's that pretty much wraps up our conversation, since Bill's not here.
What a twat.
Yeah. Oh, bitch. Anything you want to add?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. That concludes our chat with my friend Leo, whom I served with from the time he entered the training center in September until he left in February. I hope you found the conversation interesting and learned a thing or two about conscription in Taiwan and substitute service. One thing I forgot to mention during our chat is that the fire training center in Taiwan is the largest live fire training facility in Asia, and the 3rd largest in the world behind Texas A&M Fire School and the Fire Service College in the UK, which is why we get visitors from all over the world despite the lack of diplomatic ties with the countries of most visitors. My biggest takeaways from service were working together every day with people from various walks of life, and after becoming administrative cadre, hands-on experience in leading people and getting them to want to cooperate with myself and one another. If you like these sorts of conversations, be sure to like and subscribe on your listening platform, as well as on YouTube and Rumble, and also share with friends who may be interested in what we talk about over here. As always, if you have any feedback or show suggestions that fit the theme of this podcast, please send them to straighttalk@xiangyu.tw. I'd now like to give a thank you to my upper-level patrons, Alvin, Megapatriot, Yijing, and Pranav. If you like what I'm doing and want to support my work sharing a perspective of Taiwan and beyond not covered by mainstream media, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon or making a one-time donation to any of the links in the show notes. See you guys in the next episode.
我们来自四面八方，豪气可比消防战士，乘着凤凰展翅飞，万年转变在今朝。 不怕烈火和风雨，无惧高楼和荆棘。看我们体大一体能战机枪，浴火重生，奋战到底。不怕烈火和风雨，无惧高楼和荆棘。看我们体大一体能战机枪，浴火重生，奋战到底。